Hello, friends and colleagues. Welcome to this special collection of reflections from our Reframe for Resilience podcast. What you're about to hear are brief, powerful moments from our guests. These are leaders, change agents, and everyday people who have faced challenges, asked hard questions, and chosen growth. In the circle of inclusion, we are reminded that inclusion isn't just about being present. It's about being seen, heard, and valued. These stories ask us to consider who's truly listening, and how do we hold space for voices that have too often been overlooked. In equity in leadership and education, our guests challenge the idea that fairness means sameness. They invite us to recognize that not everyone starts at the same place, and that true leadership removes barriers so that everyone has the chance to thrive. In Growth Through Reflection, we hear how adversity, uncertainty, and even pain can become pathways to transformation. These are not stories of perfection, but of honesty, courage, and the willingness to reframe the moment in order to lead from a place of purpose. As you listen, I invite you to reflect on your own story and how your challenges might carry the seeds of your own strength. And if something resonates, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs encouragement. Start a conversation. Be the person who creates space for inclusion, equity, and growth. That's how we begin to reframe for resilience. Not just for ourselves, but for others.
I understand that exclusion is a part of life, but there should never be systematic or structural barriers that exclude students. Those should not exist, and that is for everyone. And for equity, I say, we talk about fairness with children so much, but equity gets politicized. And fairness and justice is equity. People need different things. And I think when you are able to paint a picture that is that speaks to your audience, so some families may not understand racial equity, but they can understand equity around learning style or learning ability. And I just try to tailor that approach so that people understand, like, we're not saying one thing, but we want to be really intentional that we can give each student what they need, and it's under this umbrella.
The culture that we live in almost demands of you. And Dr. Douglas, as you told me your story, I couldn't help but think you would have seen some of this in profound ways. You know, it demands that either you're a high performer or that you're highly competent. Mm-hmm. So, you trade off of your expertise, or you trade off of your ability to get things done. Mm-hmm. And that's the showcase, and that's what you've got to do. And the emphasis becomes being a knower of things or a skilled person. And so we start to literally trade, want to be paid for our ability to perform or to know. But actually, we got to where we were because we learned, not because of what was in our heads, but because there was space to gain new skills, to acquire new insight, to innovate, to disrupt, to grow, to bring creativity. And if we aren't already, if we have stopped being open to the new and to learning, we become the problem to change. We become the chief resistor.
Is the model that I coach and educate and lead leadership groups towards. And the idea is that I don't work for you as an indentured servant. I don't work for you at your whim. I'm a partner as an employee to you. You're a partner as an employee to the companies that you work for. And as leaders, their job is to make sure the partnership is good for both sides. And often that means, everybody's gotten an email at like 4:00 on a Friday. Can you get this done? And the implication is, can you get it done now? And of course, it's 4:00 on a Friday. You don't want to get that done. It's the end of your day. You're wrapping up for the weekend. Nobody wants to do that work at 4:00 on a Friday. But the ability to say to your boss, not right now. It's 4:00. I'm about to leave. I can get to this Monday. And to be able to feel empowered to have that very adult, very reasonable conversation about your boundaries with your bosses is critical. But you can't make that culture happen from an individual contributor perspective.
Believe in your people. Believe. We are here together, friends. And whether it's family, friends, your nonprofit, for-profit, I don't care. But believe in one another. You have a capacity that is so much greater than you think. And there are methods that can make it better, which is what I lay out in proactive problem solving. But it starts with, you've got to believe. Senior leaders tell me, our people can't do that. Well, that'd be wonderful to do, but I don't think our team can pull it off. I said, well, I think you better just fire them all. Well, what do you mean? Yeah, fire them and get some other ones in. But you're going to have to fire them too. Well, why is that? Well, and you'll have to fire the next group after that. Why is that? Because your system's the problem. You can put Einstein in that broken system and he'll still screw up. You need to fix the system. And when you believe in people, then you believe that people, as a friend of mine just said, are not part of the problem. They're part of the solution.
Thank you very much.
For 2 decades, we couldn't get 39 organizations to agree on anything, and we had to bark out command orders, and we wound up going back and forth with them. These workshops did in 2 days what evaded us for 2 decades, and it became a powerful tool. We knew that in a period of 48 hours, we could process the thinking of this group, come up with a solution. It would be, many times the solution would be a surprise to us as to what we needed to do, but it was the best thing to do. And so this is a very tangible example of how you do System 2 thinking at System 1 speeds. And one last comment on it. The role of the leader changes from a boss to a facilitator.
Mr. Collins, thank you very much. Nobody is smarter than everybody. Tell me a bit about the Reliance College that you're now embarking on. What are you hoping to achieve?
So Reliance College is a uniquely organized program with a very rigorous liberal arts component and also a practical experience component. And the liberal arts component is, people don't often understand that liberal arts was originally the kind of learning that you needed to be a free person. It comes from the same root, liberal, as liberty. So it's the knowledge and the thinking skills that you need in order to navigate life as a free person. And it's been, unfortunately, a lot of liberal arts programs have been greatly degraded, but ours is organized by great questions about life, the world, how did things develop, where did civilization come from, how do civilizations fall, what is freedom, do humans have free will, all kinds of questions like that. And all of our readings and our study are related to these questions. And we use our special dialogue format.
And that really set a fire underneath me. Initially, and I'm like, no, this is what I want to do. And these are the schools I want to go after. I was an architect major at first. I wasn't a business major. I was an architect major. So it's something that I loved and something that I still love. But I moved into a business major And then I had others that believed in me. The CHRO that I mentioned before, Craig, who talked to me about schooling and reading and participating. And I led Harvard business leadership courses for 150 BPs after school. Like when I was in my HR role, I've led Harvard courses. I have my MBA. And I want to go back and find, I call it my high school counselor, and just be like, you have, like, the way he was pushing me towards something, to say that I wasn't worthy is just not acceptable.
And so when you talked about, as we get older, seeing ourselves in others, I began to think also of that part of reframing, looking for a better problem to solve. If we look for how that problem or a related problem is also affecting others, it probably will help us to find that better problem to solve and to reframe our situations. What do you think about that?
I think you're 100% right. I love your work on reframing and how you've, prior to this meeting, we talked about your work on reframing, and it's brilliant. I mean, I think that the way that you've looked at reframing makes it accessible to everyone. And reframing is a good thing. We all need to reframe. When you're caught in a problem or even something, it doesn't matter how small it is, you can't see past that. And sometimes we need someone to help us to reframe it, to either say, that's not as big as you thought it was, or it's bigger than you thought it was, or maybe you should just put that on the back burner for now and look at something else, like you just said. And we need people to help us to guide us through that. We all get into situations where we need to reframe throughout the day, at any given point.
If something resonates, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs encouragement. Start a conversation. Be the person who creates space for inclusion, equity, and growth. That's how we begin to reframe for resilience, not just for ourselves, but for others.